Welcome to the Fuel, Move, Recover podcast. This show is a complement to the content found at advancingathletics.com. We welcome you into the FMR family, but remember the topics we discuss are not clinical recommendations or medical advice. Howdy everyone, welcome to the Fuel, Move, Recover podcast. This is episode 4 and what we like to call Family Week. My name is Michele Iono. I am joined by my teammates Alex Uding.
Hi.
And Lindsay Malone.
Hello.
So as you know, this is our audio complement to everything that we do on advancingathletics.com as a part of our Fuel, Move, Recover platform. And every fourth week is what we are calling Family Week. And so all of our content is entirely based around our members. So we have webinars for our Protect and Serve plan members, and we have this mailbag episode that we're about to start here in a second. But as you know, we always like to start off with seeing how everybody's day is going and if anybody's drinking anything good. So Alex, you're up first.
All right. I'm drinking water and my day was good. Had some work today, saw a few people, and then a nice team meeting where we kind of discussed kind of our reopening strategies and what we're doing out here. It was super hot and muggy. I got a very nice cloudy sunburn. So that'll feel good tomorrow. But overall, good day. How about you, Lindsay?
I had a good day. My daughter just learned how to ride her bike, so we practiced.
Oh, that's the best.
We went to my high school track because it's soft, and so she got, give her a little confidence. She can go around a bunch of times. So that was nice. It was warm, but kind of windy here. So then on to Little League, and now this is the most relaxing part of my day. Drinking a beer, and I am drinking tonight one of my favorites, Lighthearted Ale. So Bell's Two Hearted Ale is one of their flagship IPA beers, and I love it. And they just came out with this lighter in alcohol version earlier this year. What about you, Michele? What are you drinking? How was your day?
What? You guys, okay. So first, what I'm drinking, that's the easiest thing to tackle. I'm drinking a beer called Cheeky, which is a peach ale by some brewery called Sycamore, and they are out of Charlotte, North Carolina. So, as pretty much everyone should know, I am on the Outer Banks right now. So, I had to try something local to the North Carolinas. Also, if you hear yelling and screaming, it's my family just destroying each other in Gen Rummy 500 upstairs. So that's what all the noise is from. And my dad, and we always vacation with a priest, so it shows you how Catholic we are. And he's a movie buff, so he always likes to catch dad up on movies. So, okay, so a typical day in the life of Michele right now is I wake up at 5:30. And it's already light outside because sunrise is, or first light is 5:15 and sunrise is 5:45. So I walk, probably 50 yards across the road, down the road, cross the road, and then watch the sunrise come up. And for those of you who got the newsletter, the photograph that is on this week's newsletter, that is from one of the sunrises that I took. So I enjoy the sunrise, and then I come back, and we usually have breakfast and play with my niece and nephews, and then I go for a run, and then I swim in the ocean after that, and then I may or may not start drinking, and then I will just cook, and we are staying in one of those big nice beach houses, so I'm able to keep my streak alive, and I mean, how can I not? It's on the beach, so yeah, so it's pretty nice right now.
Sounds rough.
You guys know me. I'm always willing to take one for the team. So yeah, and you guys are more than welcome to come down. We have 3 more days. So by the time folks are hearing this, we'll have 1 more day. So you're probably shit out of luck. But for Lindsay and Alex, you guys are hearing this on Wednesday when we record. So you're welcome to come down if you can get down here. So even though Alex does have the Atlantic Ocean, a beautiful view of what's that? The bay called, Alex? Narragansett Bay?
Narragansett Bay. Yep.
Yeah. So you ought to see a picture of that. We'll use that as one of the weekly the photographs, and then you guys can see how beautiful her view is out her front door. So
I feel like that was a Lake Erie snub. Are you snubbing Lake Erie?
yeah. Well, you know me. I'm also proud, but I mean University Heights is beautiful, Lindsay. But not to give away your exact coordinates, but it's not exactly Edgewater,
No.
or Geneva on the Lake.
Yeah. The
So
closest we have is Shaker Lakes, which is still pretty nice, but it's definitely
very, very nice.
yeah, it's definitely not the ocean.
I don't know if you should take the kids swimming in the Shaker Lakes.
No.
So maybe, I don't know if, I don't want to scare anybody, but maybe necrotizing fasciitis. So that's all I'll say. So I actually met a girl when I worked at the Cleveland Clinic, and she had this huge scar down her arm, and it was like, oh my God, it looked like she had been in a shark attack. It was crazy, this massive scar on her arm. And I asked her, finally, because we rode on the bus. We used to have to park past Case.
The shuttle bus.
Yeah, the shuttle. Yeah. Yep. So I rode that mofo for 2 years, and or for 1 year. And so it was crazy because I had to go past work. Anyways, okay, I'm getting distracted. So the point is that I rode the shuttle with this, I don't even remember what her name is anymore. She was blonde, but she was really sweet. I think she was an animal tech. She worked in the central, because I worked at Lerner. She worked at central processing, where they processed all the beakers and all that stuff. So anyways, she was really nice, and I don't know, knowing me, I was probably trying to hit on her back then. And so I, of course, 22-year-old Michele thought a good conversation piece. This is this gnarly shark bite on her arm. And here she told me that she had necrotizing fasciitis, and somehow that she had gotten it, and she had one of the best documented cases, meaning most successful recoveries.
Wow.
From it. Yeah. So it was pretty gnarly. So that's my necrotesh. And so
I'm glad she's doing well. That's good.
Yeah. Yeah, she's living her best life too. So, but you want to talk about some perspective and just being happy to be alive. Well, that was her, man. So to catch everybody up from last week, we need a brief history on the art of tug-of-war. And apparently acceptable names would be Tug-o-War, Tug-War, Rope War, Rope Pulling, or Tugging Rope. No, sorry, Tugging War. So this is a direct quote from Wikipedia. The origins of tug-of-war are uncertain, but this sport was practiced in Cambodia, ancient Egypt, Greece, India, and China. According to the Tang Dynasty book, The Notes of Fang, tug-of-war under the name hook pulling was used by the military commander of the state of Chu during the spring and autumn period, otherwise known as the 8th to 5th century BC, to train warriors. During the Tang Dynasty, Emperor Xuanzong of Tang promoted large-scale tug-of-war games using ropes of up to 167 meters, 548 feet, with shorter ropes attached, and more than 500 people on each end of the rope. Each side also had its own team of drummers to encourage the participants. So there's that. So it's apparently a pretty old thing. And to this day, Miami University in Ohio and Hope College in Michigan have annual tug-of-war challenges. So
Yeah, I think my
Ew.
Tug-o-War contests were always missing the line of drummers. I think that really would have made the difference in terms of it being fun or not.
It's like a combination of Drumline and Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. Lindsay, anything to add?
I don't. I mean, I don't even I couldn't tell you the last time I played tug of war. I think there was like a one of those like um I forget what I don't know the exact name of them, but they're like a 5K but with like obstacles and things. Do you know what I'm talking about? And I think there was a tug of war there, but yeah, I
But
don't have anything
that's it.
intelligent to add.
Okay, all right, that's fine. Well, uh, I was going to ask you to explain the difference between Miami University and University of Miami, since you did go to school down there in the Miami
Yeah.
Valley.
Yes.
So, can you
So
contribute that way?
Miami University is in Oxford, Ohio, and University of Miami is in Florida. Um, some people in Ohio call Miami University the Harvard of the Midwest. I am not one of those people, although I do although I do like Miami University. I'm not an alum. Beautiful campus, nice place. Yeah.
Yeah. When I was in the early 2000s, when I was in undergrad, and Alex was in middle school. That's where all the preppy kids went, was Miami.
I think that holds true. I mean, I think that's pretty much the same now.
Yeah,
We
it
would it was
definitely
like
is the prep school.
45 minutes from Xavier or so. I mean, we would I
Hmm.
feel like there were enough people that went there and Dayton that we would just kind of make the rounds on the weekends and
Hmm.
visit people because it was a nice, easy car ride. It's a beautiful campus, though. I mean,
Hmm.
it's like amazing.
Yeah, yeah, it is really, really nice. Um, okay, so then we can cross that off our list, everyone. I hope that was helpful. Feel free to join in the conversation on the forum if you feel obligated. So, the next thing we have to cross off our list quickly is an update on the nipple chafing issue, which I absolutely have not conquered. Boy, oh boy. Not only did I get some bad nipple chafing, but then I took my tank top afterwards. I thought the tank top would save me. It didn't. That I actually had blood on my tank top. So, thoughts?
I think shirtless is the way that you
Yeah.
have to go. Yeah, I think that's what it comes down to, unless, the other thing I thought about, what are those? It looks like a deodorant stick, but it's like waxy. There's a fun name
Mm-hmm.
for it, but I don't know what it is, and they always have it at the marathon expos. You know what I'm talking about?
Yes. It's
Have you
like Body
tried that?
Glide.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
I thought about just dripping wax on my nipples. I didn't know if that would do the same thing since it's also waxy.
I don't know. Or you just have to get maybe like a real fitted tank top to wear. Like if you're gonna wear like a t-shirt, you could get like an Under Armour like something more snug that doesn't move.
I know it's been 8 months since you saw me in person, Lindsay, but
Yeah.
I'm not entirely sure the public perception of me wearing a form-fitting tank top to go jogging yet. I'm not quite at that. I know we're talking about positive body image. That's definitely a part of our message here at Advancing Athletics with our platform, but I'm not quite sure yet that I'm not. And so I did my rather than do that for also more short-term solution, I decided to try my cheerleader twist tie, and that seemed to be effective. I also spent probably 3 hours in the ocean yesterday, so that hopefully cauterized my nipple wounds enough to.
Now
So I feel
I
like
do have an interesting suggestion. So
okay,
without maybe too much information, but I have nursed 3 children now, and they do have like a waxy. It's like a healing ointment that might be helpful for you.
really okay.
Yes.
We'll put a link to that in the show notes.
Is it that balm that they use? Yeah, Aquaphor would probably.
So Aquaphor works really well, but this is I'm trying to think of the name of the company. It's purple. Um Lanasil or something like that. Anyway, you'd
Good.
have to go to the
You know,
infant aisle at Target.
well, I mean, there is an 18-month-old in the house, so I mean, I'll just
Oh,
take him with me as,
yeah. Okay.
you know, Vincent can be my
Support.
yeah, my support. So so on that note, that was actually informative. I wasn't expecting that to be of any use at all, but that actually was. So that actually was useful. And it's just one nipple too. That actually,
Oh.
not to get all nerdy into movement, but that really shows Alex how my thoracic rotation is just like way out of whack, man. I looked down and my nipples were not pointing in the same direction as my belly button. And I was like, man, I need to figure this out, dude. I'm just so rotated. Like, oh my God. It's actually the exact same position I'm in right now. I'm in left thoracic rotation and right lumbar rotation. So no wonder my right nipple is so much more prominent when I run. You know, it's literally on the bleeding edge.
We'll
So
figure it out. We're gonna do it together.
yeah, yeah, we'll chip away at it. So I think
Get
we
some
can move
extra
on now.
iron. Get some extra iron tomorrow for your blood loss. Some
That's a good
spinach.
point. I just started drinking more, so that's why I'm not. That's why you're the field lead now. Once again, the format for this week is it's just a mailbag week. So right now we're going to go through the questions and we're going to stay for about an hour, and then we'll see how many of these we get through, and then we'll go from there. So once again, if you'd like to leave a comment, you're welcome to join us over at fuelmoverecover.com. So fuelmoverecover.com and advancingathletics.com goes to the same place. We have both domain names. That's why you might hear us using these interchangeably. So, as I mentioned at the top, this week is Family Week. Alex, explain a little bit more what Family Week is.
So during Family Week, we've collected questions from our members who've, it's completely open, whatever you want to learn about. You can direct a question specific to Lindsay about nutrition, or it can be more general where we each provide input, but it's pretty much open topic. It can be about what we talked about in the month with our specific articles, or if you're just curious about something, ask us and we'll be happy to answer. So you might feel like the questions are all over the place, but it's because different people want to know different things. And I think getting these questions will also help guide us for future conversations as well. So we love hearing from you and being able to help you directly by answering your questions.
So, first, we have actually two comments, both about intermittent fasting. First, we have Abby G, not Ali G, who's somebody different, but Abby G. And she says, there has been a lot of buzz about intermittent fasting lately. I'm curious what you all think of this eating pattern as it relates to properly fueling, moving, and recovering. Pros, cons. And we also have another comment from Mike I. He says, I'm also curious about intermittent fasting. I've fasted every Monday for 2 years now. It sets up my week and kicks it off in the right direction. What are the pros and cons of it? And would you recommend more than 48 hours or 28 hours? 20 and would you wow, I'm really struggling today, aren't I? So I am on vacation. Okay. So what are the pros/cons of it? And would you recommend more than 24 or 48 hours? Also, what are some other strategies, foods to eat, exercises, fasts, etc., to speed up your metabolism? So let's go ahead and, Lindsay, why don't you kind of break down intermittent fasting and give some of the guidelines before we add in the movement and the recovery portions to it?
Sure. So, the first thing to sort of talk about here is, uh, people do say intermittent fasting or ask questions about it, and I think everyone's definition can be a little bit different. So it seems like Mike is talking about not eating for an entire day. Um, if you look at the research around fasting and sort of what technically qualifies as a fast, it's pretty much anything under 600 calories will kick you into a fast. And so, with that, you have some that's 600 calories in a normal day. Um, but you can also get some of those same benefits for, with fasting for, let's say, 16 hours and keeping your eating within an 8-hour window. So there are different ways to do it, and the benefits are pretty much the same. And so, basically what it does is it helps you start to use some of your stored fat for fuel, which for many people allows them to have more sustained energy for a longer period of time. So when you're burning sugar for energy, you sort of go up and down depending on what you're eating and how you're digesting. But when you're burning fat, it's pretty much a steady, stable level of energy. So that's one benefit. The other is that it really improves your digestion. So when you're fasting, your body has um, a sort of a reaction, sort of cleans up everything that's going on in your digestive system. And if you imagine like a wave sort of going through your digestive tract and moving everything along, including, bacteria and things that, aren't serving you when you're fasting, this sort of gets kicked on. So digestion, it really helps. Again, energy levels, it helps. The other thing that it's really good for is normalizing blood sugar. So, for many people, morning blood sugar is an issue, meaning it's into the pre diabetic or diabetic range. If you fast in the morning, naturally that morning blood sugar is going to come down because you're going to use all of that sugar for energy, and then you're going to start burning your fat. So if you're diabetic, pre-diabetic, if you aren't either of those things, but you have a lot of belly fat, it could be that you are technically, and it just hasn't been, it hasn't come to the surface yet, and it could be a benefit there. So last but not least, it also stimulates a couple of different physiologic processes that support repairing cells, boosting your immune system, so helping your immune system better identify and kill off things that aren't good for you. So let's say a cell that has been damaged and maybe on its way to becoming a cancer cell, or um, you know other pathogens, so like bacteria, viruses, etc. So lots of good things here, right? So it's improving your tissues on a cellular level, good energy, improving digestion, improving blood sugar. The flip side of this is that, if you're working on building lean body mass, muscle, right, and you're fasting for long periods of time, 24 hours, 48 hours, and you're not, uh, you know, supplementing maybe with some protein within that 600 calorie target that I talked about, you could be, sort of losing muscle in that time period. So going in the wrong direction. So to get the benefits and to avoid the muscle loss, I would do shorter periods of time and perhaps supplement with something like collagen powder or gelatin, or a vegan-based protein powder that is very low in carbohydrates to maintain the fast but support your muscle. And we would call that a variation of a protein-sparing fast. So long-winded answer. Do you guys have anything to add?
I don't, from like a fasting perspective. That was really helpful for me even to like learn more about it and understand more about it. So thanks for that. Yeah.
How about Alex, from just things for people to like think about? Anything from a movement standpoint? How will their body respond if they are in the middle of a fast during a workout?
Well, I think certainly you have to consider what the demands of the activity are and how you are feeling during it. that if you are in a fast, recognizing that the activities may be harder than they typically are because your fueling is a little bit different, or um, like Lindsay said, you have to be cognizant of what happens on the back end in a workout. Like if you're strength training, you're breaking down muscles, and as you recover, they get rebuilt. And so you need to have certain things to allow those processes to be optimized. So, like Lindsay said, make sure that you are giving yourself what you need to make sure you're still complementing what you're trying to pursue with your goals. So I think from just like a perspective of like, be safe with it. You know, if you're feeling like you don't have enough in the tank and you're getting lightheaded or you're getting dizzy, or um, you might have to either modify the activity that you're doing, maybe little less weight, maybe giving longer rest periods, change the demand a little bit to make sure that you're still in a safe, practicing in a safe manner, let's say.
Yeah, and you can work up to it to sort of
Yeah.
feel out, you know. So I usually tell people, if you're thinking about it, start with like a gentle fast, which is basically no snacking, like just 4 hours or whatever in between meals. Um, and if that feels okay and you're not having any issues of like a low blood sugar or anything like that, then maybe skip breakfast and go right to lunch and play around with that. And then if you can do a whole day, I think you know, beyond the physical benefits that I mentioned, I also think there's something about the mental, like stamina of being able to do that. When you're trying to clean up your eating habits, it can seem really hard to not put, flavored junk creamer in your coffee. But when you go a whole day without eating, you're like, oh, that's fine. I can do this. Like I can have, just black coffee or whatever, or I can skip, the French fries, or it's easier if you've then, kind of put in that work of not eating for a whole day. Doing little things like that can seem more manageable.
And I think then also timing your workout to like your fast as well, like picking what time of day to do it might help you feel a little bit better. But I totally agree with what Lindsay said in terms of like building it and kind of starting, like, see what your reactions are and starting off with something smaller and a little more manageable before going all in, if that's right for you.
This brings us back to the whole point about what's your goal, right? So this also gives you something really effective and relatively simple to implement. If you're struggling getting on the right path, you need somewhere to start. That this can be something that's effective. And also going back to what Lindsay said about some discipline, you know, learning how to struggle a little bit and learning how to like find a little bit of resilience or anti-fragility, the ability to like recognize, oh, I'm actually feeling fine even though I haven't eaten. Or, maybe maybe it forces you to go out for a walk to get your mind off of it or something like that. And it's not that you may not have this unbreakable addiction to food, but rather you're just so used to filling your downtime with snacking and with eating and with passive activities that this can give you the opportunity to find things to do with your energy and with your time beyond simply just eating. So there's a lot of psychological benefits that can come from it, as well as the physical benefits that Lindsay just laid out, which of course can affect your movement as well as your being a part of your recovery. But we also want you guys to start to feel like you're able, no matter what your thing is, no matter what your job is, learning how to take control of like challenging things, and learning how to utilize your free will to optimize things, even if it's in a small way, or even if it's just improving things in a little bit. So even if you just want to challenge yourself to be able to do it and you're relatively okay with your nutrition, as long as it's done well and you follow sound guidelines like what Lindsay is starting to lay out for you, it can still be an effective tool.
Yeah, so for just one other thing to add. So, like I said, I don't recommend anything more than 24 hours, and even with that, I would space it out. So every Monday I think is fine. And if you felt like you weren't getting the gains that you wanted in terms of like muscle performance, stamina in your workouts, that kind of thing, I would just, like I said, add in a lower carb protein source, because carbs are what are going to kick you out of a fast, because then your blood sugar goes up and insulin turns on and all of these things happen. So, vital proteins, collagen, I really like. I think it's a good quality product. It mixes well, it's not flavored. So you're still having that mental, I'm not eating anything because it really doesn't taste like anything. Or there are, like I said, some vegan alternatives as well. Garden of Life makes some really good vegan protein powders. And you would just do that before. If you're going to work out, I would do it right before. And if you're not going to work out, just do it, somewhere in the day, probably in the morning would make the most sense. And that should help you maintain those performance gains while you're still getting the benefits of fasting.
Great answer, Lindsay. Thank you so much for that. So moving on, next we have a comment from Mark P. And he has a little thought experiment that I thought we could run. And he says, I've started reading into neurotyping as a way of modulating performance for each individual. The model proposed by Christian Thibodeau is based off a model unrelated to physical capacity. Do you think this holds weight or is still unproven? First, Alex, would you like to give us some details about what this is?
I'll try my best. I'll be very honest. This isn't something I know a lot about. Yeah, so I think the idea is that there are different presentations that somebody can have based off of like neurotransmitters, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So based off your neurotransmitters, people might present in different ways. So someone might be like low serotonin or different things. And the idea is when you present a certain way, you respond to life, we'll call it, in different ways. Because I think the idea is that they match your nutrition, your workouts, um, the characteristics that represent these different personality types um, to your daily habits. And so you try to complement them because you might then be more responsive to the change and that the goal, because it's matching possibly what your body responds to from a stress perspective. We'll call it stress, like in terms of training and fueling and things like that. So for each personality type, they have certain recommendations they work on, but I don't know the research behind it, so I can't speak to anything like that. But I can say
Yeah.
from like my professional perspective in terms of working with various clients, like I do make certain exercise choices, certain warm-up choices, certain recovery choices based off of personality and how they respond to stress and what physical and mental reactions they have to certain things. So I think, if it's following if that in its own way is following what they're presenting it as, I can certainly see where, what I might give one athlete is very different than what I give another athlete. And if I've got someone who's a workhorse all the time and they're giving everything 1,000% all the time and they don't know how to de-escalate from that super heightened level, my training programs for their recovery side are going to try to bring them out of that state a little bit. So I'm going to be maybe a little more selective with what I give. Whereas if I have someone who's just super relaxed all the time and I need to get them a little bit more fired up to complete maybe a job demand, and it just isn't, they might need different inputs or different challenges or presented an exercise in a different way so they respond to it a little bit better. So I could see it.
Yeah, I think that from my understanding, there's 3 personality types generally speaking, that this falls into, or that this person, Christian Thibodeau, uses to base this modeling out off of. And it's adrenaline junkies, which are serotonin deficient, so they seek that, I think. Then there's people pleasers, which are dopamine seekers, and then there's harm avoiders, which no, they're the dopamine ones, I think, and then the norepinephrine. Either way, so it's dopamine, serotonin, and norepinephrine. So essentially, it's basing all your programming off of that. I think there absolutely is, whichever one is whichever one. The point is that I think there absolutely is justifiable, reasonable modification to that. Whether you're helping somebody develop a meal plan or a dietary strategy, or we're working on recovery, or we're in the clinic working on exercises and movement, the way somebody responds to stimuli and the way they interact, whether they respond really well in large group settings or they respond poorly in group settings. And then there's this other thing called need of cognition. Essentially, your need for cognition is how much do you need to understand the thing that you're doing to be able to execute it or buy into it. So obviously, I'm a very, very, very high need for cognition. I want to know every single part, even if it's just I'm volunteering for the weekend. I'm volunteering for something that's going to be a one-day thing. I'm never going to do it again. I still want to know like every piece to it. And if you don't explain everything to me, I have a really hard time buying into it. That's your need for cognition. How much do you need to know what's going on to buy in? And I think that if we don't, I think two things. I think first, if we don't incorporate your personality type or your need for cognition or some of these other soft skills into your training paradigm, I think that you will not optimize the ability of people or the benefit or the rehab or whatever, the programming. But I very purposefully say optimize because I think that it is essential that we meet people where they are. And a part of that is understanding who they are and understanding some of these things. But I also think that we also have to identify we have to make sure that people are coming to us for the right reasons. And, or if you're the person that you're not a coach, but you're just somebody listening to this and want to get better, you have to think about why you're doing whatever it is that you have to do. So sometimes it's not your because the basis of neurotyping from the very limited information that I have on it is that lack of success comes from people feel unmotivated. People feel like their diet isn't succeeding. You know, are you familiar with the term refeeding,
Mhm.
Lindsay? Yeah. So you are going to have to explain that next after I'm done. But the point is that the reason why people don't succeed with some of these things, or the reason why people don't succeed with these things, is because of their neurotype or their personality type. And I think that a part of it can be explained to that. And a part of it is like what you said, people learning discipline, people learning how to control some of these things that dictate the way they fuel, the way they move, and the way they recover. So it's like 50-50, maybe not 50-50, but it's definitely both things. Is that giving people the opportunity to learn how to challenge themselves and also making sure that you have good buy-in because people are coming to you for the right reason. And then our job, or whomever you go to see, is their job is to make sure that they understand you and they're able to tailor things to you.
Yeah, I think that's like right on. I mean, you think about when you have a person coming in and they want to make a change, it's always going to be a little bit uncomfortable. So you have to find that right balance that so that the challenge is appropriately calibrated for them between where they want to be, where they are, what they can handle. So if I have someone who's coming to me to lose some weight and they're eating horrible and everything is like, they want something simple, doing that gentle fast might make a lot of sense, because there's nothing simpler really in terms of diet than fasting. Like, you're not talking about counting anything, measuring anything, choosing the right thing. It's literally just a period of time where, food is not in the equation. But for other people, that might be, too much to ask, or just not the appropriate, recommendation for them. But yeah, that's interesting. I haven't heard of that. I mean, I haven't heard of it put like that. I think I've read a couple papers with this kind of theme, but I'll have to look into him. Is he a researcher, or what's his background? Do we know?
I don't know.
I think he's a trainer.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think at the end of the day, this is the whole art of coaching. This is the
Yeah.
whole art of human relationships in general, is being able to understand where someone is at, understanding their background, their values, their priorities. We have to reflect that in anything we give them, because if we're not giving them something that supports their priorities and what they believe in, it's hard to buy into that change, like you said. So I think this is the art of coaching in many ways.
Okay, so next we have Anthony P. And he reached out to us just like you can if you become a member. And he says, as a sheriff deputy, I have so many stressors that I deal with on a daily basis. I have to deal with watching a man die in a car wreck, and I have daily stress with transporting inmates. And I always struggle with turning off the good and bad stress. The bad stress at times does come home with me when I am at home with my kids and my wife, and it is not fair to them. I can use all of the concepts that you talk about daily and use them towards my job and me off the job as well. Got it. Okay. So I think, so he's talking about, so he's the part that I want to focus on here for us to talk about is how the bad stress at times does come home with me and the kids, and teaching him, maybe how to process that. I think that the first thing that I would recommend for Anthony, I'll start off since this is a lot of the stress stuff like that we talked about last week. And the first thing I would start off with is, if you haven't, maybe you should talk to somebody about it. And it can be a really powerful opportunity to have somebody professional walk you through your feelings and have you process that stuff and come up with techniques that allow you to process all this stuff that you're feeling. So that would be the first thing. The second thing, whether you have been to somebody or that's not an option for whatever the reason, or you're not ready for that, this kind of goes back to what we talked about with meeting somebody where they are, is that maybe starting with some journaling. And it sounds like super touchy-feely or warm and fuzzy, and he's a sheriff deputy, so he is in a field where you have to be very stoic and have and be very strong, and so it may not be very comfortable to do that, to sit down and talk about your feelings, but there is very clear evidence that is very beneficial for you to learn how to deal with all the emotions that come with these really challenging components of your life. So I think that would be and then the final thing is that if you have already identified things that are useful for dealing with stress, then you need to communicate, and they're obviously healthy outlets. You need to communicate that and coordinate it with your wife if the kids are young, and then say, hey, honey, when I come home, I need this amount of time. I need an hour. You guys compromise. You guys figure it out. You and her figure it out and say, I need this amount of time when I come home. As soon as I get home, I need to drop my stuff. I need to go for a walk. I need to process. I need to journal. I need to work out. I need to, whatever the thing might be, I need some time with just us, with maybe the me, you, and the kids all doing something, because whenever I do that, I feel so much better. So maybe that's what you do. So those would be my primary. You have to identify something that helps you deal with that stress if you haven't already. And once you do, then you need to hold on to that and make sure you utilize that on a regular basis so you can kind of reset it, or so that you can turn that switch off, go into family Anthony instead of being Sheriff Anthony.
Yeah, I think I can, even though, obviously I'm the fuel person, but we can all, right, weigh in on these things.
Mm-hmm.
So part of my clinical background, I spent like five years or so at our cancer center at the clinic. And it was really hard to like see and deal with, death and just, really tough conversations. Um, and then come home and, like your family wants to see you and they don't necessarily have any idea of what you've been through all day. Um, and I'm not a doctor, so I didn't have to make some of those decisions, but I was still there and had patients that I lost. Um, but I think you're right that, talking to your spouse, first about kind of what you're dealing with and what you need from them to make it a little bit more manageable and to really take advantage of the time when you are home, whatever that may be. It could be just, 5 or 10 minutes to come home and get out of your clothes and put on your home clothes and like make that mental shift and maybe, take a hot shower or something, have like a very distinct kind of thing that you do to like transition into the next part of your day. That can be challenging, right, with kids because your wife may be like, I've been home with the kids all day, or I was at my job, or whatever. So I think it is a discussion that you have to have. And then I think talking to someone, I agree. I think it could be so helpful, or journaling, to just go through the motions of getting it out of your brain and either on paper or, in front of someone that can, walk you through how to handle those emotions. Because if you don't, right, it just builds up, and that's when you have that stress coming out at people who are not, associated with your job, like your family.
Yeah, and I think that too, with first responders as well, there are so many unique job demands that it entails. There are first responder like mental health organizations as well. So one is the first responder center.org, and they have a lot of different resources on there and can help. They have contacts where they can help you find someone in your area and things like that. I think another thing to consider too is support for spouses too, because they take on a very unique demand in this relationship as well. And so, talking to each other is very important, but making sure both people in the relationship have a skill set that they can turn to take care of themselves, but also be there for the other person. And so sometimes making sure that the spouse has the ability to talk to someone and understand can help complement and support you in its own way as well.
Yeah, so those are really good resources, Alex. And I think that the concluding thought about this point for Anthony is that it's okay to accept that you are really doing the Lord's work, so to speak, or you are really doing an extraordinary superhuman job and you are an ordinary human. You're an extraordinary person for choosing to do this, but you are made up of the same guts and bones that the rest of us are. So you are going to respond the same way, and you don't want to lose that. So don't be afraid. Don't don't feel bad about needing to process what you've been through differently than, like, let's say your wife is a teacher. Teaching is very challenging, but it is not, transporting, whatever he said, transporting inmates or watching a man die in a car accident. Those are very different things. So she's going to have different needs than you do. And, you'll need to be able to coordinate with hers as well. But the point is that you have to find a way to process that. So finally, we have a comment from Vinny A. And he says, what are some strategies that we can employ to learn to recognize when the physical load is too much in order to avoid injury? Alex, why don't you go ahead and start us off with this one?
I think a few things with this. Learning what normal expected responses to exercise are, and when those signals are typical of what we would expect from a workout routine or an event, and what might be more of an indicator that maybe something happened or you're not recovering appropriately. So, recognizing, muscle soreness and responses like that should recover within a few days. Movement should help them. You shouldn't feel that you can't go back to that muscle group and work it out again after you've recovered within those few days. Certainly, if you are feeling very localized discomfort in a spot when you're working out your whole body, that might be an indicator that maybe you're not doing that exercise appropriately, or you're continuously stressing a specific area that maybe it's a technique issue or an overloading issue. So being able to recognize what your response is to routine. I think a big part is making sure that your routine is well balanced, that you're not always hitting the same muscle groups all the time, that you're making sure you're doing all sides of the body, that you are complementing your daily activities with your workout routine, because sometimes we get into these habitual patterns and positions that we're always doing, that the same things are always working, that we want to make sure we balance it out and give some love to the other things we might be underusing, but then also making sure that you are prepared for the demands of the day that you have to. So I think a balanced routine is key. I think making sure you allow recovery. So there might be times where you're in a training block, and at the end of it, you're going to deload for a little bit. Allow yourself to kind of reassess, like, what gains did I make during this time? What feels good? What feels like I'm lacking? Reassessment, I think, is always a good thing. After you've worked towards a goal, you need to reassess yourself, modify, adjust, and then keep going. So I think balance, reassessment, and then just making sure that you are taking the time to listen and recover with your body. That if you feel something and it just doesn't feel right, usually, that's a strong message that's being sent, that maybe there's something else, and it might not be a big deal, but just addressing it before it becomes something bigger. And it could just be as simple as a conversation with, like, hey, this is what I'm feeling. What do you think? And that can, I think, a lot of times keep you ahead of things.
Yeah, I think that is a really good start. And then furthermore, a few other points is, if you have that regular routine, like Alex said, like let's say you're in a good habit of foam rolling every day, if all of a sudden you feel differently rolling after this workout versus the previous workout, then that's an indicator of you pushed differently or harder than you did before. Same thing with, if you don't, let's say you take the dog for a walk every morning, and you get up and go to take the dog, and it doesn't you don't feel as good as, or that the muscle group, or you get um, some unusual feelings that way with those things, or you have trouble sleeping or whatnot. And then, of course, too, is that the red flags that we look for as physios is, if you have sharp pain and things like that, like there should be none of that. Those are always, of course, good indicators that you've gone too far. Things may not be ruptured. I mean, if things are feeling unstable and things like that, or you hear any weird noises or feel any weird feelings like pops or clicks, or another good sign that you maybe need to be conservative, that it would be best to be conservative. for some amount of time until things start to feel better. Then you can, okay, I'm going to try to squat for a little bit. Like I met somebody, or I know somebody, and she was telling me that she had to take 2 weeks off running because all of a sudden her knee started hurting. Well, she didn't fall, she didn't twist her knee. So the odds that, 2 weeks in and of itself would just magically make the thing go away is unlikely. Unfortunately, it's probably something that she's doing when she's running. So once she starts running again, then it's going to start to come back. Lindsay, is there any tips, like sensations that people feel or notice whenever they're training extra hard from a dietary or like a sensation standpoint?
Yeah, I mean, I think, the one thing that I always, hear from people is, related to just feeling sore or achy. And I think, that points to, either maybe not enough protein somewhere in their diet, having enough protein, particularly those branched chain amino acids, timed, especially if you're, doing some strength training, timed with your workout, either, right after or, pretty shortly thereafter. And then in terms of achiness, like more of an anti-inflammatory type diet, which, goes back to, plenty of plant foods, whole, minimally processed foods, your omega-3s, and wild fatty fish and walnuts and flax seeds and that kind of thing. So cleaning up your diet, making sure that you're getting enough protein. And I know we sort of beat this to death last week, but having enough water, right? And making sure that you're drinking enough.
Great. So, Alex, any concluding thoughts?
No. If anyone has questions, please send them. We'd love to help you out.
Lindsay?
Yeah, I think it's good to, if you have a question, probably someone else has the same question. So we love to kind of work through it with you and help problem solve as a team.
And I think this is a great time to end because it sounds like the Rummy 500 game is getting really rough upstairs. But like I said, we'll be back to normal next week. And we really appreciate you checking in with us, and for our members for sending us their inquiries. And thank you all for listening. And just remember that we're entirely member funded. So we are here to give shout outs to worthwhile first responder departments or organizations, and also to give free seminars, in-person seminars to first responders. And if you want to be a part of that while also being able to participate with us and get your answers questioned, then you can sign up, and we have a couple options for you. So until we talk to you next week, we thank you for your attendance, and please shout us out or subscribe. It really does help. So that's it for now. And don't forget, while you're serving others, to pay yourself. Goodbye for now.
Goodbye.
Bye. I always forget that part.
Done. The Fuel, Move, Recover podcast is a product of Advancing Athletics, LLC. You can follow us on Instagram at Fuel, Move, Recover and Facebook at Advancing Athletics. This podcast is funded by our members at fuelmoverecover.com. Their membership is matched with free seminars on performance and wellness for underserved municipalities in Ohio and beyond. Come join the FMR family to improve your well-being while supporting others. The following departments and charities are the shout-outs of our patrons with Protect and Serve memberships: the Gary Sinise Foundation, the Stark County Sheriff's Office, the Task Force Dagger Foundation, Veterans Outdoor Foundation, and the Woonsocket, Rhode Island Police Department.